So in this video we have a cold start of the Defender. I then drive down a hill whilst it's still cold. After struggling to get first and reverse, and it gets stuck in third, I nearly get T-boned by a guy who thinks he's American or lives in America. I then talk about this for reasons that were necessary for my own personal therapy. We drive through some snow before bridges, and then we drive past more queues of lorry drivers still as we head into New Year. And yeah, so let's get on with this.
¿Y lo de callar mientras arranque, qué pasó?
In 200 meters, turn left.
Which we pick up here as it started working. The first few starts obviously were not caught on the dash cam. And I ask my kids if they can be quiet so I can listen to any funny noises whilst it starts, and guess what? They didn't stay quiet. You could have probably guessed that. Just like in the first of these videos when they wouldn't go to sleep even at 5 o'clock in the morning in a dark car. But anyway, we digress.
Turn right.
So to sum up, whatever went wrong with the car just before the French border and made some funny noises and had some funny gear implications as we arrived into Tours last night, made getting first and reverse slightly hard, but didn't prepare me for it locking into third gear when I was going down a hill.
Joder, estoy enganchado en esta marcha.
But, you've got to put these things down to it being cold, etc., and get on with it. And fortunately, when I arrived at the junction just ahead of that, I was able to put it into first, no problem. But it does not fill you with huge amounts of confidence when you have a tunnel to get to and a lot, 700 kilometers of driving in just over sub-zero Celsius temperatures with lots of rain, sleet, snow, etc. And this was all whilst trying to fill in the return to UK forms and give the details of the PCR test that we had pre-acquired so we could reduce the isolation period from 10 days to 5 because the girls had various exams that they needed to do, which by the end of this trip had all been either cancelled or postponed. So it was all kind of in vain and we could have stayed longer. But as far as we knew right now, we had some deadlines to hit and a hockey Land Rover. Nice. So for now, it was a question of nursing her through the gears, and the strategy was to stick to around 100, 110. We had enough time. It was early enough in the morning to do so. And, not rev too hard and listen out for any unusual noises as much as you can do between, the noises from the rest of the people in the car. Oh, and the other little thing of making sure that you don't go through Paris, but go through Le Mans. And that Waze doesn't suddenly try and reroute you through Paris. Because A, I think the French have suddenly got a bit sniffy about cars over 20 years old going through Paris. But B, I have learnt by hard experience to avoid all big cities, especially ones the size of Paris, like the plague when travelling, because there are just so many people and cars around big cities that the possibilities of traffic jams, accidents, blockages, etc., 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 are just not worth it. Just avoid. If you're going to drive through France, avoid Paris, unless, of course, you want to go to Paris. Then you kind of can't really avoid it. But get the train. It's much better. Or the plane. Well, not now. Yeah, probably still drive. Let's get on with this video. So we are now just about 2 hours from the Eurotunnel. Yeah, it's been... didn't get much sleep last night because yesterday, as we were driving, so it had only been about an hour into the journey between San Sebastian and the French border, my it seems, I don't know if it's a rear flange or something that went in the drivetrain. I felt what felt like fuel starvation going down those windy hills a couple of times, but I didn't think it was. And then I had in the approaching the toll booth, there was a terrible clunking, and when I tried to put it into first, it just clunked. It struggled and limped over to the side. And as Malcolm from Land Rover Restoration's Facebook page said, you know, put it into Diff Lock and the spline should lock together and then you should be fine if it is the flanges. So I did that, and then went along the motorway, which is quite nerve-wracking because you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to go on firm surfaces, but the problem is going around corners, right? So there's not that many corners on a motorway. But I then couldn't get it out of Diff Lock, so I just pulled it fully over to the right out of Diff Lock, and sure enough the light went off after a while. And then had some funny noises and clunking, arrived into Tours, and there was some awful clunking in, I think it was in first with the clutch in or in neutral. But anyway, and then this morning it was really hard to start because it was cold, I suppose. It's only about 3 degrees. But then coming down the hill out of away from the hotel, I couldn't get it out of third, but then when I stopped at the traffic lights, it was fine, came out of third. So taking it easy, and yeah, let's hope. I think she'll get us home. I've got to say, you know, if she does, a Defender will go, you know, 1,400 kilometers with a major problem. Will go further than an average car will go with, you know, a limp mode or warning light. So, yeah, there's no wood to touch here, but you know, with a bit of luck, we'll get home. And taking it easy, which, you know, you've got a family in the car, it's not a difficult thing to do anyway. But we'll let you know. But yeah, it's she's done 20,000 miles so far without a hiccup. But this, yeah, it's kind of stressful. Did not sleep very well, as I probably said. But yeah, that's what coffee's for, right? To add to the fun yesterday, so I put it into Diff Lock, went a little bit along the motorway, which kind of you're not supposed to do, but again, you're not supposed to go on firm ground going around corners, which is what will wind up the gearbox. But so on the motorway, it was pretty straight. But yeah, when I went to test it again, I was actually at the French, one of the péages, or the toll booths was at the French customs, and there was, you know, the police there deciding who to pull over next. And I was thinking, oh, it'll obviously be the guy with the rattly gearbox. But fortunately, there were some dodgy-looking people in a van next to me. Anyway. Which brings us to here, to the wonderful Eurotunnel, who charges you more money for priority and then makes you join halfway up the normal queue where nobody wants to let you in. Not very clever. Also not very clever is the barrier, which didn't work. And so I had to reverse up and go to the next barrier, by which time we'd missed a train. It's not the end of the world, but, and to be honest, when you looked at it, I think the standard ticket at the time that we bought it, when I didn't know if the Defender would make it or not, was about £186, £190. The normal ticket was about £216, and I think the Flexi Plus was £226. Well, if you look at it, it's £30. My daughters managed to eat more of the macarons in the Flexi Plus lounge than we paid extra. Sorry, did I say that out loud? It doesn't matter. It's the first time we'd ever seen macarons, and on the way out there was literally nothing. So, yeah, it's time to get on board and back to London, and hopefully not need a trailer on the other side. We just missed. It's only past 4 ferry. It's time to get an hour later. So, made it to the ferry. Fingers crossed.